happy to have you back. Taylor is the author of The Rebel Wife. He is also one of the Goat Hill writers, and we're talking about all of the stuff you've been doing lately.
So much stuff.
The Goat Hill writers have been super active this spring, and we're gearing up to talk about a couple of events coming up. One big one tomorrow, and then more happening later on throughout the month of April, and then more happening in May. So you have been very busy as well as the other Goat Hill writers. So we're happy to have you here in studio. Thank you for joining us on the last business day of March.
Right? Yeah. Amazing. Time flies.
It's gone by fast. So let's start off by talking a little bit about the big event happening tomorrow at the Providence Public Library. Going to be discussing and diving in about short stories with some award-winning writers.
Yes, absolutely. Goat Hill Writers is me, Ann Hood, and Hester Kaplan, who are amazing writers. And we are thrilled to have Bill Rohrbach, also an amazing award-winning writer. Both Bill and Hester Kaplan are Flannery O'Connor Prize winners for their short fiction. So two real master storytellers talking tomorrow at the Providence Public Library at 2 p.m. about their work, how they write short stories, how they approach the idea of their work, where they find inspiration, what the challenges are. So it should be an exciting talk, a really interesting talk for people who love literature, who love short stories, and for people who want to write short stories or who have a writing practice of their own that they want to develop. And we really do focus on writers who enjoy reading, but also writing.
And that's what I think is so cool about Goat Hill Writers, is that you not only are you three are very talented writers in yourself and offer a diverse mix, but you also bring in award-winning writers like this to offer different perspectives as well. And I think that gives it a really neat perspective for people who are coming up in the writing scene, looking to add a mix to their portfolio. Talk to us about what you're looking forward to for this event tomorrow.
Well, I think one of the things when we formed Goat Hill that we wanted to do was leverage our connections to a national network of writers, publishers, editors, agents, and so all the programs that we do, we want to bring people from outside Rhode Island here to talk to our local community of writers and to help cultivate that community. So I think that tomorrow the talk is really going to be focused on, what is a short story, what makes it interesting, what makes that experience compelling, and how do these two really talented award-winning writers approach their work and struggle through the process of writing. Because writing, as anyone, I'm sure, whether you're writing an article or a research paper or a short story, it's a struggle to sort of express in a clear, elegant way. And that's what, we hope these two are going to share with everybody in the audience.
And every bit of advice and noteworthy note can always help, right?
Yes, absolutely. Always learning. Always learning.
Always learning, which is what's so cool about the community here in Rhode Island. And it's so nice to have someone like yourself here, or whether it's through another organization, always getting writers, authors, readers in here to talk about it. I feel like the community of writers here in Rhode Island, it's so great to have and build that up and to embrace that.
To embrace it and to really cultivate. I think there is a really strong writing community in Rhode Island. There are many people who are writing on their own. There are a lot of writing organizations, and we think, in the way we build programs and the way we build workshops and seminars, the other things that we offer to writers here, what are we contributing in addition to what is out there? How do we offer something that other people, people can't get anywhere else in Rhode Island? And I think that professional network exposure to that national professional network and the expertise that we have developed as writers in both our work and being professionals in that network are two key things that we really think are special about what we offer and what we can bring to the writers here in Rhode Island.
100%. So that's tomorrow. The event is tomorrow at the Providence Public Library, Saturday, March 31st at 2 p.m. Cost?
Yes. No, free. No
Free!
cost. Free. Can you bet? You can't beat that. No registration, no cost. Just show up. 2 o'clock, Providence Public Library. It'll be a party. It'll be a party.
You're in. That sounds so cool. Okay, so there's another event coming up called Creating Characters.
Yes.
This is part of your spring seminar workshop
That's
series, which is so neat. You've had a couple of these already moving forward. So the next one, Creating Characters, is on April 16th.
That's
and
right.
it's the last seminar in the Creative Writing Seminar Series.
Yeah.
Held at School One over on the east side of Providence.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how these seminars have been going for you and really what the feedback's been like.
Yeah, they have really been phenomenal. We, as I said, we are looking for ways to connect with a writing community here, to help cultivate that writing community. So we offer workshops. I'm running a 7-week small group workshop with writers who are bringing their work to the table. We talk about it, develop it. We thought, what are some other ways that we can connect and support a community? Not everybody can commit the time that you need to a big workshop. So Hester Kaplan, thought, well, what about a seminar series? So, over the course of the spring, 3 evenings, 6 p.m. to 8:30, where a writer, someone who has a writing practice and wants to develop that to get some insight, can come easy, low cost, low commitment. Just come, engage, have a discussion that helps elevate your thoughts, your approach to craft. The first seminar was the narrative engine, so the idea of how do you get the story started. The second was creating emotions. As we all know, the works that we remember the most, the ones that are most impactful, are the ones that make us feel the most. And so developing an understanding of how to really touch the emotions of the reader is crucial. And then this third one that I'll be leading is creating characters. How do you create a compelling character? How do you even approach the concept of what a character is and does in a literary work, in a short story, in a novel? So that's what will, that's the sort of the background on why we thought this was a great thing to do. They've been sold out, so we only have a few seats left for the Creating Characters, so definitely get on it. And it's something, too, that we want to keep doing. We've really had such a great response to this. We'll offer a new seminar series in the fall, so definitely stay tuned for more.
Cool. Okay, so that's another thing we wanted to talk about today. In light of and preview of the Creating Characters seminar, we want to talk about really what is a good character?
Yeah.
How do you create a good character? And then hopefully lead into your workshop, kind of build that anticipation, right?
Totally.
Maybe
Yes, a little teaser. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What really makes a good character, and how do you create that when you're just starting out?
I think that we get story ideas, writers get story ideas from all sorts of places, but it always comes back to people, to characters. And for me, a starting point is that word character and the various meanings it has. Like we all know, hanging out at the bar or in the office, that guy is a character. So we're talking about a strong personality, someone who has a really distinct persona, habits, personal tics, a way that they see the world. So the idea that first and foremost, a character is a strong personality that we can see, feel, understand through the pages. And that comes through the details, the way you build that character, the way you show that character to the reader, through concrete details, through the things they do, the things they say. So that's sort of the starting point for how this seminar will go, but also for how I approach the idea of what a character is and how you develop a strong character in a piece of fiction.
Does the character make the story, or does the story make the character, or does it really depend on the kind of writer you are and the kind of story that you want to narrate and evolve?
Yeah, I think it's a really individual sort of approach. It is the story you're telling really determines all of the balance of all these things. So who the character is, what they're doing, how they see the world, all the choices that you make about that character have this sort of interactive relationship between how you conceive of the character as a person and a personality, and also the action, the struggle that they're engaged in. What do they want? Why do they want it? What are they willing to do to get it?
Yeah, exactly. What I think is interesting too is, going back to my literature days in high school and maybe some in college, his character doesn't always have to be a person, right?
That's
so
right.
if you're looking at it from something, you can build a strong character in an object or
Yes.
a place, right?
Yes.
How do you approach that when you're writing? If you're building up this character that's not a person?
Yeah. For instance, in some of the classes I teach, we just read a short story where the storyteller is a green parrot from Puerto Rico. So, right.
Sounds cool.
When we say, it was a great story, when we talk about character too, we're not talking about people necessarily, and yet the character possesses whether it's an object or an animal or a thing, possesses all of those human qualities that we, feel and see in each other. And so that's what makes a sort of a character who's not a person really compelling as well. Investing an object, and that's a surprise too, investing an object or an animal with these human qualities has a certain appeal, a sort of allure to it as well.
Can you ever develop a character too much in a story, do you think?
I think that is a great question. We talked in my class last night about a story we all read, and we discussed it. And some people felt like there wasn't enough about one of the characters, that the character was two-dimensional, flat. We didn't know enough about the character to really connect emotionally to the character. So it depends on the story. Again, I think that does that character really need to play a bigger role in the story? Other people in the room felt like the story really wasn't about that character, and so the action, the transformation that occurs, and this is another key element that I'll talk about in this Creating Characters class, is there are characters who change. Stories are about change, are about transformation, and so having a character who is a certain way at the beginning and realizes something or has an epiphany or sees the world in a different way by the ending, this is the experience, the transformative experience of story. Not all characters in the story are going to have that experience, and so you need less from them. You definitely need more from that character who's going to be undergoing the change.
So they can have those types of relationships.
That's exactly right.
I think that's so fascinating and so interesting because we all perceive stories different, so we all are obviously going to tell stories differently.
That's right, and that's what's amazing, that we all have our own voice in all of these classes. It's not about me or anyone telling someone in the room, this is the way you should write a short story, or a novel or whatever. It is about saying these are ways, techniques that people use to develop and build effective stories. You as the writer take that toolkit back to your writing table and you figure out what works for you in the story you're telling. Because it is, right? It's a totally individual, very personal endeavor.
And hopefully you can take that journey well. So you're a historical fiction kind of guy.
Yeah.
So how does that work when you're building characters? How can you make sure you're being historically accurate in a way, but still building those characters in the way that you want to tell your story?
Yeah, that's a great question too, especially about historical fiction, because you want this verisimilitude, the sense of realness, the reality of the world. The reader wants to be confident in the authoritativeness of the writer, that they're creating a world that is historical. The reason we read historical fiction is this sort of time travel. We love to go back in time and feel like we have an experience that is embedded in that moment. And so how do you create that? And there are all sorts of pitfalls and all sorts of ways. Research, of course, is the crucial sort of element. Being in the space, so Providence, for instance, is a historic city with a lot of that historic fabric that still exists. So being able to be in a space that has that sense of history, there are, places on the east side, Fox Point, that you can really feel that sense of time travel. But connecting with the voices of the people of the past is my key way. And so that takes research as well, looking at letters, looking at archives. Diaries, I find, are really compelling ways to get into the head of a person, particularly a diary, a letter someone is writing to another person with a purpose. A diary often is someone putting down their own reflections in a way that they don't expect other people to read. So Mary Chestnut in South Carolina during the Civil War was a diarist who was recording her thoughts and events that happened, this momentous experience of the Civil War. She knew it was momentous. She was recording thoughts and details for use later in her own writing, but that diary that she left has become this incredible resource, gold mine for getting into the experience, and was a key way for me to get into the experience of a woman in the 1860s who was ambitious, who was smart, who was witty, who was politically astute, who wanted to participate in these conversations, but because of the way gender was perceived and the way women's roles in society were restricted, she felt this frustration. And you can read that between the lines of her diary as well, which is a fascinating thing to discern and then to be able to use when you're building, again, creating characters.
And it's so neat because you can use historical text. You can use something that really happened to be able to work off and build your own character as well. So so fascinating. So if you're interested in that spring seminar series, that is April 16th. And before we let you go, Taylor, do you want to, last time you were here, we were talking about the Write Rhode Island Awards, or the Write Rhode Island competition. That is wrapped up, to my understanding.
Absolutely.
Can you fill us in on what happened?
This is our second year. Goat Hill has partnered with School One on Providence's east side to build this short fiction competition for high school students, grades 7 through 12, across the state. So we, again, in our second year, really tried to push and get more people involved. We had over 30 workshops in libraries and schools across the state. We had over 150 submissions. Of those submissions, we chose 3 top stories and 17 additional notable stories that were published in a short fiction anthology. We had a great award ceremony on March 18th at the Newport Art Museum. All these kids, their families, their teachers were there, honored for the work that they did. These amazing stories from across the state: Woonsocket, Central Falls, Barrington, Cherahoe High School. So truly a geographic distribution of stories, which was amazing. And the content of the stories about, family life, loss, doubts about the self, secrets, all sorts of things, from fun, zany, madcap stories. There was a particular story that I loved called Marie Nottingham about a witch school. So really fun, crazy, wonderful, dramatic, powerful stuff. So wonderful to be a part of it, wonderful to wrap up our second year and begin planning our third year.
I love the fact that our literary community is so large, it continues to grow at the middle school level and above, and probably starting even earlier.
And that's that cultivation, I think, that again we're doing workshops, having these seminars for adult writers, but getting in touch with young writers, getting them writing at a young age is the way you really build literary community, and we're so thrilled to be doing it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you,
Taylor
so
Politis with Goat Hill Writers. Tomorrow there's a big event at the Providence Public Library. That's free. And then the spring workshop seminar series is April 16th, so you can catch him there as well. And he'll be back, I'm sure.
Yes.
So we're going to take a quick pause and get set up here for our next guest on GoLocal Live. Hang tight.